So you spent a lot of money on that new 4K TV set, but didn't really consider that you would probably want something to complement it, and your budget is pretty much blown. The ultimate media player setup may be out of your reach for now, but you definitely need something for the meantime. The Fire TV Stick 4K may be your answer. At $499, it's one of the cheapest media players on the market and allows a bit of freedom outside of its major competitors. So what are we looking at in terms of basic specs? For the processor, we have a 1.7 GHz quad-core CPU, a PowerVR GE 8300 GPU, 8 GB of storage, 1 GB of RAM, and dual-band Wi-Fi with speeds that are set to support up to 866 megabits per second. A USB-C connector provides power for the device and can be used with the multifunctional OTG cable for additional storage or wired Ethernet support. Immediately, my first inclination was to test out the wireless signal. On my 300 megabit connection, I peaked out about 300 megabits down and 240 up when I was in close proximity of the router. Taking it further out about 40 feet from the signal, I did see a significant drop in speed, with it registering about 40 megabits down and up. My only problem with the Fire Stick's dual-band Wi-Fi comes with not being able to select the initial frequency I want, as one tends to be much faster than the other. Even with that being said, these initial findings were definitely a good sign that I would at least be able to stream videos at a decent quality. The Fire TV 4K stick does boast a ton of supported features like HDR and Dolby Atmos, but unfortunately my TV and receiver does not support many of the new features available. Connecting the Fire Stick directly to my receiver lowered the resolution to 1080p, which meant taking advantage of the ARC feature was the only way to get higher resolution from my TV and sound out of my receiver. Doing this seemed to leave me with just a basic Dolby Digital 5.1 option. My first streaming test outside of Amazon's basic offerings was with my HD Home Run OTA device, and after an update, things ran pretty smoothly. A little more on this later. Of course, to push the Fire Stick even further, I had to look to unsupported applications like that of Kodi and RetroArch for some of my personal media playback. If you are unaware of this, Amazon devices run on a modified version of the Android operating system, and as such, can be used with other apps found on Google Play Store and across the web. Using the downloader app allowed me to install these programs without hassle. Kodi was my main test bed when looking at just how much the Fire Stick can take, and well, it does okay bearing a few tweaks. Kodi's latest version, Leia, has been out in the wild for some time. The official release did have a few issues with the Fire Stick, but much of this has been fixed with the RC1 update. Audio files are fine for streaming both on the local and network-attached storage, but videos, on the other hand, can vary. The DVD ISO format works great, though load times may vary based on the signal of your wireless router. When I first started a video in this format, it exhibited some choppy behavior. Fortunately, this was simply fixed by turning off the hardware codec. On the other hand, DVD MKVs with the MPEG-2 codec seem to run fine either way. The Blu-ray VC1 codec sadly struggles with stuttering playback, but converting to the H.264 format plays the movie without an issue. Ultimately, you may want to rely on Plex or MB's transcoding media software if you want to avoid the long wait times it will take to convert Blu-rays, but just remember, you will need a good piece of hardware with the server application to pull this off. The HD Home Run plugin for Kodi had some audio sync issues for me, but it may be a receiver or signal strength issue. The official add-on app seemed to work fine for the most part. Gaming on the Fire Stick was quite the toss-up. Though the device supports several wireless controllers, it may come down to the luck of the draw for you in terms of compatibility. As the owner of a PS4 controller, I was disheartened to find out that only version 2 will work with the stick. Even with the OTG cable, the controller would just not pick up, which meant biting the bullet and purchasing one that would. This led me to purchasing a Matricom G-Pad BX, which happens to be the cheapest solution out of the initial choices I found on the internet. Once paired, the controller was pretty flexible, though it did require some additional setup to use with other applications. Searching for games in Amazon's marketplace was a pretty dull affair. A few retro titles are littered throughout, but there aren't nearly enough titles available, and some of them are ridiculously overpriced. To test out the hardware, I chose the free-to-play racing game Asphalt 8, as it seemed to be one of the few titles available that could really show what the Fire Stick was capable of. It did pretty well, though the 30 frames per second gameplay gave me a hint that things were going to be presentation over performance for any game of this level. With such a lackluster offering on the Amazon Marketplace, emulation definitely comes to the rescue in this case, but just how far can the new Fire Stick go? Results find the Fire Stick getting up to at least the 6th generation of gaming, as I witnessed the stick handle some fairly demanding 3D accelerated games. Using RetroArch, 2 Android emulators, and a popular Kodi frontend, I managed to come up with a pretty pleasing setup, making the selection for each game a walk in the park. RetroArch's run-ahead latency reduction feature works surprisingly well, but I did find a few odd occurrences when using it with certain games. Unfortunately, I didn't find any opportunities to upscale the resolution to test out just how much the Fire Stick could handle, as the supported cores did not have the options available to do so. So what are we ultimately looking at when it comes to the new Fire TV Stick 4K? I have to say, a lot of bang for your buck, bearing you don't have to pick up any additional items to help you heighten the experience. You certainly want to save up for something better, but for something in the meanwhile, or in addition to a bedroom or a secondary space in your dwelling, I think it's well worth the asking price. Getting the most out of it takes some setting up, but you can really have a fairly seamless experience if you plan accordingly. Well, this concludes our first media player overview. Make sure to give me some feedback or recommendations in the comment box below. If you want to figure out how I made all this possible, I've left some links in the description box, which should help you in this endeavor. I also have an initial setup video for the Fire Stick on the way, so stay tuned and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. With that being said, this is Decor, your resident entertainment techie, signing out.